Zip up your members-only jacket, crack open a tab, and pause your Walkman as we bring you to the 1980s.
That's right, the 80s Show podcast, where we talk about all things 1980s. From movies to TV shows, music and stars, fads and fashions, we'll talk about anything and everything to do with the 1980s.
The 80s, the best decade in decades.
All right, we are your hosts. I am Bill Lassiter, alongside my my other host, Damian Raffelli. Say hi, Damian.
Hello.
Exciting first 80s Show podcast we're doing today here. Pretty exciting stuff. We're going to talk about all things 1980s.
That's right. And we're bringing it to you right here from Southern California.
Wow, in your spare bedroom. But okay, let's move on from that. So if you...
It's an office / spare bedroom.
That's fine. That's fine. So please give us a follow on Twitter at 80s Show Podcast, or like us on Facebook at 80s Show Podcast. We'd love to hear more from you about our show, and from you about things that you want to see and hear. So our show today, we're going to talk a little bit about some 80s movies that are in the news, one in particular, and we're going to talk about two of our favorite 80s toys. I'm not really sure if they're our favorite 80s toys, but they were very popular in the 1980s.
We're from the future. How's it going, dude? Our historical babes. Excellent.
All right, so 80s movies in the news. It came out earlier this year that they're going to make a Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure Part 3 titled, ready for it? Bill and Ted Face the Music. What do you think about that, Damian?
I think it's most heinous.
Do you really think it's most heinous? I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be most excellent, actually.
You know what? I wasn't excited until I heard that Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter are attached to it, and the original writers, I think, too. Right?
Yeah. So currently in pre-production, the movie has been written by the franchise's creators, Chris Matheson and Ed Solomon. Chris Matheson wrote Imagine That, and Ed Solomon wrote Men in Black from the 1990s.
Classic 80s film, yeah.
Yeah, so, but they wrote the original Bill and Ted, so I think that's pretty cool that they're part of it. Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves were quoted by saying they came out with a joint statement that said, "We couldn't be more excited to get the whole band back together again. Chris and Ed wrote an amazing script, and with Dean at the helm, we've got a dream team." So Dean Perso was the original director as well. He also directed Galaxy Quest.
Ooh, that's a favorite.
Yeah,
Tim Allen.
Yeah, that's a good movie too. So anyway, are you excited about it or just me?
Well, is George Carlin going to be coming back?
Poor George Carlin passed away a few years ago, I think, Damian.
But they have a time machine.
You know, that's a good point. But here's the catch, though, right? Bill and Ted's, what was a time machine? The time machine was a phone booth. When's the last time you saw a phone booth?
1980 something.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, you know, I was at a concert at the Hollywood Bowl a couple weeks ago, and they have old phone booths there, but now it's just charging stations. You can charge your cell phones in the phone booths. I'm sure my kids don't even know what a phone booth is.
It's very hipster.
It is very hipster, actually.
So here's a trivia question. How much did it cost to use the phone booth in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure? What was the monetary unit on the phone?
To dial a call?
Yeah, dial a call. Apparently,
well, it would be like a quarter back then, or what? How much?
20 cents.
20
2 dimes.
cents.
2 dimes.
Ooh, you can save money. It's less than a quarter. So
yeah, 80s.
That's not bad. Well, I did see the other thing that I saw about the cost of the original Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure was it cost $10 million to make that movie, and just watching the special effects. I'm not sure they spent that money wisely.
No, they did not.
So, but
even by late 80s standards, that was those special effects were pretty sad.
Yeah, it wasn't too great, but I enjoyed the movie. We rewatched it, and
we were just cracking up watching it.
Yeah, it was a very entertaining movie.
It's on Amazon Prime, by the way, for those of you who want to watch it free, or you can download it. I'm sure legally somewhere on the internet as well.
Oh, you're saying Amazon Prime is illegal unless you...
Well, if you don't have, you're too cheap to get Amazon Prime.
Wow, we're already ostracizing our
I
audience.
know, Amazon isn't even a sponsor, so you know what? Scratch that. Until Amazon becomes a sponsor, screw Amazon.
Wow. Amazon, if you're listening, we would love to have you as sponsor of the show. Don't listen to my co-host here, Damian. So here's some other cool things that I found out. Did you know, Damian, that there was actually a Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure animated series?
Are you serious?
Yeah, it ran on CBS in 1990 and on Fox Kids in 1991. And there was actually a live action series that ran. It only ran 7 episodes, so you know it was quality, right?
I don't know how I missed that one.
Yeah, and so of course none of the original characters actors were in the live version. However,
was there too much of a script for Keanu?
They didn't say "whoa" too many, enough times. Actually, he says "whoa" a few times in Bill and Ted's.
He does have a lot more lines in Bill and Ted than he does in most of his movies.
Okay, all right, I'll go with it. He has to philosophize with Socrates, so there's
Socrates.
that.
Socrates,
yeah, so here's an interesting thing. So who was the only character in the movie that they go back in time, obviously, and they get some characters from the past to present their history final. Who was the only one that got to stay in San Dimas while they were going on these adventures?
Oh, that was Napoleon.
Yeah, it was Napoleon. That's right. And so they were in San Dimas, which, if you're from Southern California, you know San Dimas is where Raging Waters Waterside Park is. But they took Napoleon to the Waterside Park in Bill and Ted's, and the name of the water park, do you know what that was?
Oh, you've got me there, Bill.
It was called the Waterloo. Oh, isn't that good? That's good, right? Yeah, that's good. So
that's clever.
That's classic writing, right? The 1980s writing right there. So the other thing that we commented on while we were watching was the fact that they kind of have a music montage where they're getting some of the characters from the past, which is a total 1980s movies move.
Classic 80s montage. I miss a good montage. Rocky, all these movies have the best montages.
Yeah.
But, going back to special effects, one of my favorite parts was the top of the phone booth.
I knew you were going to do this. Yep.
The antenna is just the skeleton of an umbrella.
Yes. That's big dollars. I mean, those umbrellas go for $5-6. So
yeah. Easy.
In 1980s times, that's a lot of money right there.
And they're hard to find in Southern California. We don't get a lot of rain here.
That's probably what it was.
Do you even own an umbrella, Bill?
Yes, I do.
Do you know where it is?
I think it's in my closet somewhere. I'm not sure.
When was the last time you used an umbrella in Southern California?
It's been a while, although sometimes I use it when I'm outside in the hot sun, to be honest with you.
So, Bill, you grew up in Southern California. Did you talk like Bill and Ted? Whoa, man, gnarly, dude.
They were just the stereotypical surfer dude personas, which is funny because they were in the movie takes place in the IE, in San Dimas, which is not that close to the beach, but I think they're just trying to put on that California surfer, whoa, excellent personas or whatever. But I didn't talk like that. Maybe dude every once in a while. I still say dude a lot. But they just totally over the top, just selling that Southern California culture, I think, is what they're trying to do in the movie.
Yeah, and San Dimas is a pretty good jaunt from the valley.
Yeah, right. Exactly. They're definitely trying to pretend like they're from the valley or whatever. But I also appreciated the fact that Ted, Keanu Reeves' character during the movie, was wearing a Van Halen t-shirt, which is, as you know, Damian, my favorite band.
Yes, I've known that for quite a while.
That's right. So, Sammy, if you want to come on the podcast sometimes, we'd love to have you. Sammy Hagar, there's a shout out to you. So. We have the same birthday, Sammy Hagar and I do. So,
and he's also from Southern California. Grew up, I believe, in Fontana.
He grew up in Fontana.
Mistaken.
Yes, we could do a whole episode on 1980s music, 1980s rock,
and we will.
Okay, we will for sure.
In fact, Bill and I saw the Red Rocker, Sammy Hagar, in concert just a few years back, and we may even talk about that. But
that's right.
That's not what we're talking about right now. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about. So what do you think about Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure Part 3, Bill and Ted Face the Music? What are your thoughts about the plot? We didn't even talk about the plot. Why don't you talk about the plot a little bit?
Well,
okay, he doesn't know. He's looking at me.
Yeah, I don't know what the plot was. You read about the plot.
I do the research around here. So what the plot is the writers described it sort of like a Christmas Carol, where Bill and Ted Theodore and Bill S.
Preston Esquire and Ted Theodore Logan. Yes,
Logan. Thank you. It's like they look back at their life and they realize they haven't made that the music and the song that they thought they were going to make, and they didn't reach the future that we saw in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. And then also,
wait. Wild Stallions doesn't make it?
Apparently not. So they have to go back in time, I'm assuming.
Okay.
Unless it's
back in time.
Forward in time.
To themselves back in the 80s?
That's what I'm not sure.
Okay.
But apparently they're going to bring their daughters with them. So just like all of us who grew up in the 80s, we're now questioning a lot of our life choices.
That's so true. Very nice. Very nice. So they're bringing their daughters back in time, but to fix the future? Wow, this sounds like several 80s movies that we've seen.
I'm sure there's no logic gaps in the time travel either.
Yeah, right. I'm sure. Well, I am excited to see the two of them back together again. I don't know who's playing their daughters or whatever, but I think it'd be cool to see Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter, who I haven't seen really him in anything since. But I think it'd be kind of cool to see them. I'd be very nostalgic.
Absolutely. And speaking of Keanu Reeves, did I ever tell you about the time I actually I didn't really meet him, but I saw Keanu Reeves?
Yeah, only about 100 times. Why don't you tell the audience now, Damian?
Well, yeah, this will be your 101st time, the first time for the audience. I used to work in West LA, and there was a restaurant not far from our office building called The Farm, and a lot of celebrities would go there, and we went there for happy hour. Mm-hmm. And he showed up with a group of his friends. He seems like a very cool guy. He was dressed in a leather jacket. He must have been riding his motorcycle because he had a motorcycle helmet.
Or not, maybe just for safety.
I'm just making an educated guess there.
Yep.
Maybe he just likes to walk around with that.
Right.
Just with some of his boys, and he seemed like a very, very cool guy. Of course, I didn't want to bother him or anything, but he seemed like you could have approached him, if I wanted to, but I was a little scared.
So you just kind of stalked him.
I still have a crush on him.
Well, who doesn't have a crush on him? I mean, we could be living in the Matrix right now too.
I actually believe we are.
Different decade, but we'll. Wow, is that another podcast we're going to do?
Yes,
are we in the Matrix? So what we want to ask our audience here is, do you want to see Bill and Ted Face the Music, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure Part 3? So tweet us at 80 Show Podcast. Let us know what you think. You can use the hashtag Bill and Ted's 3. That's hashtag Bill and Ted's 3 at 80 Show Podcast. Let us know if you want to go see Bill and Ted Face the Music, which they said we'll start filming early 2019, so we're not sure exactly when that's going to be released. But I'm definitely going to go see it for sure.
Oh, absolutely. We'll definitely have a movie date. We'll go see it, and we'll bring our wives too. So one thing that's interesting that they had trouble raising money for this because most of the movie studios would have preferred to do a reboot with new characters, new actors.
Yeah,
I definitely would not have seen that. So one of the things we want you to do when you tweet to us is to let us know: would you rather see the reboot or a sequel like they're doing now as well? So A, are you going to see it? And B, if you have any thoughts on that, would you see it if it was a reboot or a remake? And you know what? Use Roman numerals in that hashtag too. Don't be lazy and use the numeric 3. Use Roman numerals. Come on.
You want
class up the joint a little bit.
You want
class
Bill
up the joint.
I. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
And don't use an ampersand. Don't be lazy. Don't worry about wasting a few characters on Twitter.
Ampersand. You need the ampersand to tweet us at 80 Show Podcast. It's ampersand. Wait.
No, that's an @ symbol.
Oh gosh, I don't know my basic keyboard things.
I'll bet you call hashtag a pound symbol still too, don't you, Bill?
Isn't that what it is? No.
You know what? If you were born in the 70s, 80s, and you grew up in the 80s, like we grew up in the 80s, it's a pound sign.
Okay. Yep. That's right. A pound.
And if you're a millennial and have no idea what that means, just turn off the podcast now. We don't really give a crap. All right. So we're moving on now.
Wow.
Anything else you have to say about Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure or Bill and Ted's
I'll tell you what,
Music?
a funny fact about me and my family is my boys and I and my wife, we saw the movie a couple years ago. It was on Netflix or something, and we watched the movie together. And right afterwards, so this is kind of a weird thing about our family. We always name our cars. Our cars have a name. And so we saw that movie, and right now the car that my wife drives, a Honda Fit, its name is Rufus, because of the character that George Carlin plays in the movie, Rufus, who comes back in time from 600 years in the future to meet Bill and Ted. So, interesting 80s fact by Bill Lassiter.
That is a great story. We're all better for knowing that. Thank you, Bill.
The fun is back. Oh, yes, sirree. It's the 2600 from Atari. It's the video system with classics galore. From Space Invaders to cars that roar. A real hip joystick controls the screen. Solaris is hot and Midnight Magic's mean. And one more thing, it's got a special low price. Under $50. $50? Now, isn't that nice? The fun is back. Oh, yes, sirree. It's the 2600 from Atari.
All right, so now, Damian, we're going to talk about our favorite 80s toys. And so here's the thing, guys. I'm just going to let the audience know about this. So really, this 80s show was came up. Damian's the one that really came up with the concept of this. And so he kind of gives me the some of the crap assignments on this. So I'm not going to say it's crap assignment because it is exciting for some people. But Damian gets to talk about Lazer Tag while I get the privilege of talking about Cabbage Patch Kids, which we'll get to in a little bit. But Damian, why don't you go ahead and talk about your favorite 80s toys, Lazer Tag.
And don't let Bill fool you. He had at least 3 Cabbage Patch Kids.
That's right.
So we're going to talk about Lazer Tag with a Z. That's how you know it's great.
Yeah, so isn't like the word laser is like a acronym for something? I'll look that up.
Yeah, it's light amplification something. Yeah, I
think it is light amplification
so
something.
I got a couple of them. That's close enough.
But you know,
next time you're going to drop a trivia question on me, let me do a little research on it first. Thanks. We did not plan that. Thank you, Bill. And then make me look stupid. So speaking of Lazer Tag, did you know it's actually infrared? It has nothing to do with lasers. It was a technology created by the military using infrared to train military soldiers. So what do you do with a military technology like that? Absolutely create a toy out of it.
Yeah,
what
you got to have the kids be trained on it from a young age. No problem.
It was the 80s.
Yeah.
We were in a Cold War. Wolverines.
Wolverines! For sure.
So it really was one of my favorite toys growing up is Lazer Tag. I mean, I begged my dad to get that for me, and he had to go searching for it before Christmas. I still hear about it, 30-something years later. Tim talking about how he had to go out and find it, and I just don't want to hear that story ever again. Okay. It was a great toy.
Well, it's funny that, things that are old are new again. I mean, it became popular again. I mean, there's still Lazer Tag places that you can go play at today. I haven't really seen a lot maybe there are some on the market that you can play now, but I do remember the commercials were pretty badass actually for Lazer Tag. Yeah,
they were very exciting. That was the most awesome thing about Lazer Tag, that the advertising in the 80s was the best. It just hooked in kids. It's like, you're not going to survive if you don't have this toy. But they stepped it up with the Lazer Tag commercial. It was almost like a movie. It was an apocalyptic dystopian future. It was a concrete bowl that the actors dropped into on skateboards, firing their laser tag guns at each other. And it was exciting, and there was drama. And of course, if you're going to be on a skateboard, you can shoot your laser tag at somebody. I mean, that was everybody's dream.
Well, yeah. When I think of skateboarding, I think of shooting people with lasers, for sure.
Absolutely. It was exactly like the movie Escape from New York. And that's how you felt when you had a laser tag gun. So let me just tell you about this. For those of you who aren't familiar with Lazer Tag, Bill said, there are Lazer Tag arenas around the country. In a strip mall near you, there might be one. Yeah. If you're a fan of How I Met Your Mother, Barney was a huge Lazer Tag fan and Lazer Tag champion, apparently. So the one I had, it was a black, very futuristic sci-fi looking pistol, had a red stripe down it. It didn't really look like a gun to me, a very futuristic, maybe something you'd see in Battlestar Galactica. It was called the Starlight Pistol. And the kit came with a nylon belt and harness that you put over yourself. And then in the middle, like kind of in the middle of your chest, there would be a sensor. And that was the target for your opponents to shoot at.
So I kind of remember that. So correct me if I'm wrong. Like you could play a game where if you get hit 4 times or something like it felt like there was like a progressive lights on the sensor. Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah. So lights and sounds would go off, and if you were hit 6 times, you would be out of the game.
Okay, that's what it is. Okay.
So of course, if you're a kid, you can't just have 1 set for Christmas. You've got to have 2 sets. And I think my dad must have bought me 2 sets because you can't just shoot at your own target. Yeah. So you've got to have some friends who have it too. So it was exciting. I only had the base level kit. You could, like in the commercials, of course, they show you all the expensive gear you can get. There was a helmet with a sensor on it. There were caps and upgraded vests and all other cool things you could get for it. So it could get pretty expensive. You know, if you were a kid whose parents had money, which my parents did not. I was lucky to.
Which is probably why you keep hearing about him spending the money on the laser tag.
Yeah, and that was $50 back in 1986 dollars. And so that would be about $115 in 2018.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So that's kind of weird that it's a marketing strategy where you only sell one set, right? So you buy one set, one gun, you have to have a friend who has another set to play. Is that right? Or it only came with one gun and one, what do you want to call it? Sensor?
Sensor, correct. Yeah, so every kit only had one. So yeah. So if you got one, then your friends had to get them too. Gotcha. So yeah, it was a great marketing gimmick. It was actually created by a toy company called Worlds of Wonder.
Okay.
And they were famous because it was founded by former executives from Atari.
Oh, okay.
So what they did is they took their technology, the high tech, industry that they came from, video games. I don't know if you could call 80s video games high tech, but they took the Pac-Man technology and they brought it into the toy world outside of video games. And their first big toy for Christmas of 1985 was Teddy Ruxpin.
Oh yeah, of course, Teddy Ruxpin. That's a creepy looking bear, by the way.
It was very creepy.
We'll probably do a future episode on Teddy Ruxpin. I don't know.
I think it was the inspiration for the movie Ted.
I think probably I could see that.
I mean, a creepy talking bear. Teddy Ruxpin, I don't think smoked weed with you, but I didn't have one myself, so I'm not sure. Worlds of Wonder was a big company. It was really a flash in the pan. That's why you don't hear about them now.
Yeah.
But they were a public company. They went big very quickly. They started, their big toy in Christmas 1985, Teddy Ruxpin. Then in the next year, 1986, their next big toy, their follow-up was the Lazer Tag.
Okay.
And they actually set a record for growth of public companies back in the fiscal year ending in March 1987. They made about $330 million. They were profitable. But, they grew way too fast. And they were actually bankrupt by the end of 1987. They filed for Chapter 11.
Really?
So they grew too fast. They had logistical issues. Their costs were too high. And then, of course, those of us were kind of young, but we remember Black Monday in October 1987. There was a big stock market crash, and that also hurt them. And then the other thing was there was a huge controversy around what people called war toys. There was this huge thing. They said it was a war toy. You're training kids to fight, et cetera, et cetera. What really ended the big run for Worlds of Wonder toys was there was an unfortunate incident in the spring of 1987, and a sheriff deputy shot someone who actually had a laser tag gun. He thought it was a real gun. And Bill, I think you know a little bit more.
Yeah, it's interesting because you had mentioned that to me, and it actually took place in the city that I live in now. In Rancho Cucamonga, and apparently what happened was some kids were playing late at night at an elementary school, and people called in, saw people with guns running around the school, and sheriff deputies showed up, and a kid, actually it was a kid, it was a technically adult, 19-year-old, I call him kid, 19-year-old kid, popped out of the bushes with the laser tag, and unfortunately the sheriff thought his life was in danger and shot and killed this young man. And just talking with some of my friends who grew up in the area, they said they remember that. They remember that pretty well. And that the fact that happened, like a lot of people were like, well, they shouldn't be playing with those war toys, as you mentioned earlier. And of course, very tragic, very sad. But there was a lot of controversy over these war toys in the 1980s, and the fact that it did look like a gun, especially late at night, 10 o'clock at night. And you notice now if you go to the toy store and you buy like a toy gun or something like that, it's painted bright orange, or there's like a bright yellow thing on the end of it to make sure that people don't see it as a weapon. But tragic thing that happened back in 87. And that's just terrible. It's terrible. But I could totally see me and my friends, playing around the neighborhood too, if we all had it.
It really did look like an alien gun. Do you think the sheriff thought it was an alien invader? Do you think he thought that could have been the case?
I don't know.
Do you think the red stripe,
So
the
was
red
it
light
is
down
it,
the side?
Does the
scared
light
him?
does the light is it shine the light when you
Light
it
goes
does?
down
Okay.
the side, and it
Okay. I
looks
don't
very
you know,
futuristic, scientific.
wasn't there. I'm not sure about that, but it's crazy. I mean, just like I said, pretty sad, pretty tragic.
That was my favorite toy, Bill. Thanks for bringing that down for me.
So you know what? You know what's interesting, Damien, is the 1980s. There's so many funny things about lasers. I was thinking about when Reagan was president, he introduced this Star Wars Defense Initiative, or the SDI is what it was called. And what we're going to shoot down Russian nukes with? Lasers in the sky, right? I mean, lasers was just a huge thing. And this is funny. I remember sometime in elementary school we had one of those assemblies that came in. It was probably like a DARE assembly, anti-drug assembly or something like that. And a guy came with lasers, and it was the lasers, they put them together, and they had like moving, I remember a moving cowgirl singing a song or whatever. They put it to music and all this stuff. And I remember my mind being blown, like, oh my gosh, lasers, and how cool it was. Well, fast forward to, 15 years later, I'm an elementary school teacher, and we have an assembly, and guess what? Lasers. And it was almost the exact same assembly. And nowadays the kids are like, oh well. I remember my mind was blown watching it, but like nowadays the kids are like, we've seen other cool things besides, scary lasers, making cowgirls and dancing whatever on the screen. So
what you're saying is we have not invested in education since the 1980s.
Hashtag teacher raises. So if you have a laser tag story, why don't you let us know on Twitter at 80 Show Podcast or on Facebook at 80 Show Podcast. Let us know if you have any laser tag memories. We might be able to read some of your stories on the air in the future.
Or if you like the competitor, Photon.
Yeah, Photon was another one that was around. I remember I always wanted to go to a Photon. They had like arenas where you could play Photon. And I never got to do that, but I remember seeing them. I really, really wanted to. So just hit us up on Twitter. Let us know if you have any good memories in the 80s of laser tag.
Or if you wanted to have a memory of laser tag or Photon.
Like me. So anyway, so Damien has assigned me Cabbage Patch Kids. Now, Cabbage Patch Kids, if you don't know, you should know. Okay, they were huge in the 1980s. So they had a whole story behind it where Xavier Roberts was a 10-year-old boy who discovered the Cabbage Patch Kids by following a bunny bee behind a waterfall into a magical cabbage patch where he found the Cabbage Patch babies being born. And to help them find good homes, he built Babyland General Hospital in Cleveland, Georgia, where the Cabbage Patch Kids could live and play until they were adopted. And that was the big thing, was when the kids would buy the parents would buy the Cabbage Patch dolls or Cabbage Patch Kids, it would come with an adoption certificate. And each kid had its own name. Each kid was, each Cabbage Patch Kid had its own name. Everyone was different. It had different hair color, different clothes, different styles, things like that. And it took off like crazy. In 1983, the Cabbage Patch Kids were introduced by Coleco at the International Toy Fair in New York City. By October, so this was just a month later, by October, riots were occurring in stores around the country over this doll. The doll made the cover of Newsweek right before Christmas. And Damien and I got to see some footage of people in line going crazy over these Cabbage Patch Kids, and just nuts how quick that this thing took off. And really, it was marketing genius. I mean, you want to talk about the marketing on that, Damien?
Yeah, absolutely. Just the fact that they personalized them, they allowed the children to adopt them, gave them certificates. It was a very serious thing. There was no other dolls like that. That almost gave the dolls life, made them a living thing. So I just want to go back and ask you one question, though. Did you say that there was a hospital where these were born in a Cabbage Patch? Yeah, for real? This actually really happened?
So I don't know. Like, we saw some video footage of this Cabbage Patch hospital where they pretend to pull the dolls out of a Cabbage Patch, and they have like a
head of cabbage is giving birth to a child. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Well, I saw the guy, he pulls it out, and then it's, naked, and then they pretends to cut an umbilical cord from the Cabbage Patch, and very odd, very strange, but
sounds very smelly too.
Yeah, I guess it wasn't an actual Cabbage Patch. Okay. It was like felt Cabbage Patch, I guess. But sure enough, it was crazy, and we saw that the average price was somewhere between $20 and $40, which in today's dollars are between $50 and $100, depending on when you got them. And so, yeah, there were riots occurring. We saw footage of people being trampled. And so my question is, and I wonder this is, we have all these Black Friday riots, and I don't even call them riots, but people rushing Walmart or people camping out in front of Best Buy during Black Friday nowadays. And I always think, was that because of the Cabbage Patch Kids? Because of how crazy that was? I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's where it started, where those types of Black Friday deals and people beating each other up for toys started, but like I kind of feel like it may have started then. I don't know. What do you think, Damien?
I think so. I think that was the first craze around Christmas. I do have a cousin, or at least a couple cousins that had Cabbage Patch dolls. And I remember hearing stories from my aunts of people who would go buy them and saying they would have to literally fight for them. They'd have to pull them out of hands of somebody else, and someone was trying to grab it from them. So these aren't just things that were happening at TV. These are happening in real life. And like you said, the reason the prices range from, at the time, $20 to $40 is because the manufacturer retail price was $20, but then because of the demand, the toy retailers were just marking them up to $40. Yeah. We even saw a story about a father who flew to London to get his daughter's Cabbage Patch Kids.
Yeah, he lived in Kansas City, Missouri, and flew to London to get his daughter, and he was able to purchase 5 in London. Brought them back, and just crazy what parents will do. So I think about nowadays, what would happen if there was eBay back then, or any kind of online market to resell? Because I'm sure people would just buy that Cabbage Patch Kid and mark up the price a huge amount and just try to make a profit off of it. I'm sure people did that in the 1980s. I'm not sure how they did that. Classified ads, like how people word of mouth. I'm not sure how people made money off of that. But I'm sure people did. I'm sure they had.
Oh, absolutely. People were buying them. They'd go and buy as many as they could and then resell them. And the favorite, just going back just 1 second, the favorite part of that interview with Ted Koppel interviewing the father who went to London is interviewing his daughter. Ted Koppel interviewing a 5-year-old child is amazing. We're gonna play a quick clip of that. That is my favorite piece ever.
Do you like those dolls, or is that a stupid question?
I like them.
You like them a whole lot?
Yes.
Have you named either of them yet?
I named one of them.
Yeah, which one did you name?
I named the one that has the yellow hair.
Oh, yeah. And what did you call her?
Miss Tracy.
Now, Lena, I got to ask you something. You told your daddy, I guess, that you wanted one of those dolls almost as much as anything in the world. Why do you want that doll so much?
Because I like it.
Yeah, what is it about that doll that's so much better than any other doll you've ever seen?
Cabbage Patch Kids, they exploded. They actually reached the $2 billion mark in 1984. So a year after the mass market. That's just crazy money.
And those are 1980s dollars?
That's 1980s dollars.
Wow.
$2 billion. And they did everything from, afterwards they had their own breakfast cereal, of course, Cabbage Patch. I'm not sure if it tastes like cabbage or not, but Cabbage Patch cereal. They had Cabbage Patch Kids Christmas special that came on a couple years later. I even saw up recently in 2008 that during the 2008 presidential election that they made special Cabbage Patch dolls of John McCain and Barack Obama, which I think I would love to see a picture of that. I didn't see a picture of that, but that'd be pretty awesome to see.
And you know what? Also, it spawned the parody Garbage Pail Kids.
Well,
do you remember those?
Gosh, of course I remember Garbage Pail. I wish I still had some of my Garbage Pail Kids. I remember trading them on the back of the bus, driving to and from school. And I remember it was a big outrage. Like parents didn't like them because of the names of them and stuff. And I loved Garbage Pail Kids.
They're still very collectible. In fact, we're going to cover that in a future episode. I really just thought of that. I really missed those.
That sounds good. And so a personal story about Cabbage Patch Kids is my grandmother, she really, really wanted one. And my mom was able to get one for her. A coworker had waited in line for hours and hours and hours at a toy store, got two, brought him to work, and my mom was able to convince him to give her one of the dolls to give to my grandma. And my grandma was just so happy with it because the name of the doll was Tara, and Tara was apparently the plantation in Gone with the Wind, and that was my grandmother's favorite movie. So it's kind of a cool story. So I was talking to my mom today on the phone, and just said, "Hey, do you still have that? That my grandma's long gone, but do you still have that Cabbage Patch Kid?" And she said, "You know what? About a year ago, she gave it away to a charity that she works with, and she said that she hopes that a little girl would be able to have it and care for her and stuff like that." And I'm like, my thought was some person's gonna find it and put it on eBay. I hope that's not the case, but that was my first thought, was someone was gonna do that. But I hope it ended up with some kid somewhere who needs it. So.
I just have one last question for you, Bill. What was the name of your Cabbage Patch doll?
So I'd never had one, Damian, as I said before, but I do remember when my mom got that one and she had it in the house before she gets to my grandma. I remember my friends coming over, and the funniest thing about Cabbage Patch Kids to me as like a 9-year-old boy was if you pulled the pants down and show the butt of the Cabbage Patch Kid, Xavier Roberts' autograph was on the butt in stitching. And I always thought that was, hey, look at this butt. Someone's name's on there. The first, the Cabbage Patch Kid, the first doll to have a tattoo on it. There you go. There's some trivia right there for you.
Was that the invention of the tramp stamp, you think?
That could be on a Cabbage Patch Kid. That's probably true. So we would like to hear from you. If you have any Cabbage Patch Kid stories, again, tweet us at 80 Show Podcast, or on Facebook, send us a message at 80 Show Podcast. We'd love to hear from you. So that's the Cabbage Patch Kid craze of 1983.
Well, thank you, Bill, for sharing everything you know about Cabbage Patch Kids. I would love to hear more about, just like you said, our listener stories about Cabbage Patch dolls, because I know a lot of our listeners had them. I want to hear some names. I want to hear just stories about that.
Absolutely.
Maybe stories about how their parents got them.
Yeah.
I want to hear some stories about riots. I want to hear somebody got into a fight trying to get one of those.
Over a doll. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Well, the other thing is, I know that some people didn't like the name that it came with, and so you could actually send it in the mail, send the birth certificate back in the mail to the company, and they would send you a new one with a different name that you chose. And that was a big thing in the 80s, was sending things off in the mail to get something like, proofs of purchases for cereal boxes, to get toys and things like that. And so you don't see that as much today.
No, I do remember collecting cereal box tops and things
Right.
like that, try and get some kind of prize. And it was probably worth less than the cost of the stamp to send it. But,
Right, exactly. But you gotta have that cool toy, right? Exactly.
Absolutely.
All right, Damian. So that's our first episode of 80 Show Podcast. And what we want to do is tell you what's going to come up in episode 2. So one thing we're going to talk about is whatever happened to. And we're going to talk about whatever happened to the great actor, Steve Guttenberg. Yes.
And we're going to talk about how many Oscars did he win, Bill?
Let me check. I gotta look that up.
We'll let you know.
Several, I'm sure.
That'll be a trivia question for the next episode.
If you know the answer to that trivia question, why don't you go ahead and hit us up on Twitter at 80 Show Podcast. That's 80 Show Podcast on Twitter or Facebook.
But yes, we are going to talk about Steve Guttenberg of Police Academy fame.
Police Academy, of course, Short Circuit.
3 Men and a Baby.
3 Men and a Baby. And I'm sure there's some other movies that we can't remember.
Speaking of 3 Men and a Baby, what else are we going to talk about?
We're going to talk about the 80s urban legend of a ghost that was on 3 Men and a Baby, the movie 3 Men and a Baby. We'll talk about that next episode as well.
Sounds scary. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to tweet us or Facebook or email us. You can tweet us at 80 Show Podcast. You can find us on Facebook on 80 Show Podcast. You can email us at 80showpodcast@gmail.com.
All right, for the 80s Show podcast, I'm Bill Lassiter. Stay rad.
And I'm Damian Raffelli. Be excellent to one another.
Theme song composed by my good friend, fellow rock star, straight out of Bakersfield. You may also know him from the band Videodrone, Mark Russell Davis.